and welcome to the Rookie Reset. I am Andrea Fitzgerald, and I am going to be your host today. Now, you may be wondering, what the hell is a Rookie Reset? Well, guys, it would be evenings just like this my first year, except your girl would be stressed the hell out because I could not manage my classroom. Quite frankly, I can figure out this whole teaching thing. And it's so funny because I guess today was one of the one of the people that experienced you see the rookie playbook and you see all of that, but this was real life every single day with my co-teacher who is our guest today. And I'm super excited today because listen, you this is what your third time on the rookie reset.
You see, you've been doing this for so long. I remember the last time I remember was during the pandemic, or maybe was it the
It
pandemic?
was the pandemic.
I
It
don't
was
know.
about racism. We talked about that.
Yeah, was it? Okay,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. But wait a minute, let me give you a formal introduction so the people can know who you are out here. So we have a very special guest. This is, I just feel like you a whole guru out here. You know what I'm saying? Look, I can't even get the title right. What is it? List, whatever. She gonna tell y'all who she is. But her name is Tamera Malone, and I'm super duper hyped up about the conversation we're gonna have today. Listen, I still ain't got the definition right. So listen, we talking about culturally relevant pedagogy. I done looked it up and still she was like, that ain't it, boo. Okay, so whatever. Yeah, so I'm super excited for our guest today. Tamera Malone, will you introduce yourself to the Ricky Reset? Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're so glad to have you today.
thank you, friend. Thank you. First, I want to thank you for having me again. You know, we get into it. And so I am really excited about this opportunity to talk specifically about culturally relevant pedagogies. But before we get into it, hey y'all, my name is Tamera Malone, as she said. And we'll get into a little bit more about who I am. But the question I want to answer is, what do I do? So, my name is Tamera, and I am what I like to call a critical educator. And I'll talk about what I mean by the word critical here in a moment. But I am a teacher and I am an educator, and I currently teach teachers that are in the classroom and they are earning a certification and or a master's degree in teaching. So I teach them how to deliver effective instruction in the classroom, and I teach them how to collect, analyze, and respond to student data. So that's like my day-to-day job. But
Mm.
overall, I describe myself as a critical educator, a writer, and a creator. So I'll talk a little bit about what I mean by critical when I describe myself as a critical educator. And
Mm-hmm.
what I mean by that is my approach to teaching and learning is centered around empowering teachers
Mm-hmm.
and students to be fully human and to critically think about, analyze, and challenge social conditions like systemic oppression and systemic racism. So I have that critical lens that I look through as I approach teaching and learning. And it also means that I strongly believe that as a critical educator, my responsibility is to again empower students, not just students, but to empower students and teachers to change their communities, to make a difference,
Mm-hmm.
and to, most importantly, improve the lives of marginalized people, of people that have been historically denied
Mm-hmm.
access to high quality education. So that's
Mm.
what it means
That's
to be a critical educator, to center and to empower teachers and students to go and make a difference and change the lives of their lives and the lives of their community members.
okay. I got these questions, but I got a follow-up question to this.
Yes.
Okay. So what is the impact of being a critical educator of like because something that would like really stood out to me was like fully human. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about like what's the impact on being a critical educator on students and even on you as a human being yourself.
Yes. So I'll start with our role as teachers and how being a critical educator impacts our students.
Okay.
So I talked a little bit about how I'm teaching teachers to analyze data. And when we
Okay.
look at student data, when we look at it, when we break it down by
Okay.
race, I'm talking about systemic racism or systemic oppression. When I break it down by race, what we notice is that Black children, African American children, and Hispanic children consistently underperform
Mm-hmm.
their white peers. And so when I'm looking at education through a critical lens, I'm asking, why is that happening and what can I do about it? Because when we look at data across the board, when I first started teaching, in between up to now, the data has always been the same. The data always shows that there are a certain group of students that are underperforming. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not because they're innate, it's not because they don't care, it's not because they are not capable, it's because of how society is structured and how certain groups have access and opportunity to things that other groups don't. And that shows up in institutions like education, it shows up in health. It shows up in employment. It shows up in housing. And so when I say that I want people to be able to be fully human, I want our students to be able to be fully human. That means as an educator, I am doing what I can do in the classroom to equip them with the skills that they need to be able to live authentic lives, to be able to live the lives that they choose, to be able to escape marginalization. And so that's what it means to be a critical educator. You're looking at how society is structured and how
Mm-hmm.
that impacts the students that you teach every single day.
Ooh, man, I got so many questions. I got questions, man. Okay.
I might have answers. It gets
Okay.
deep. It gets deep. I
It's very deep.
said last time. It does. And I think we'll get into it, but culturally relevant pedagogy is centered around being a critical educator. That's one of the components.
All right, y'all. This might be a long conversation. Okay, I'm just just letting y'all know this one might be a little long. But listen, I got questions.
Part two. I'm here. We can always do a part two, whatever
I
you
feel like
need.
we might need a part two because I'm like, listen, I ain't even got to the second question because I'm like, I got questions out here.
Yeah, and
Um,
I was thinking about my responses. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is probably gonna be a long, good one because I know how you think. I know you got questions, and I know how
mhm,
I am. So, all right, what else?
yeah.
What else you got?
Okay, so this is something you said because
Okay.
I'm thinking about the current landscape of education right now. And something you said was that I'm equipping them with skills that is going to set them up to be successful for the future.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, it is it what are those skills? Because is it just I'm learning about complex text and I'm learning about science and stuff like that? Like, what do you think are those skills that are going to set them up as we consider like some of the systems that they're up against, some of those structures, which I love to hear a little more about. But like, what are those skills?
So you mentioned academic competence and having those academic skills. That's a part of it, right? So
Mm-hmm,
schools should be in the business of developing students academic,
mm-hmm.
their social, and their emotional well-being.
Okay.
It's about developing the whole child, right?
Mm-hmm,
Um, Thinking about skills like the ability to think critically, the ability to problem solve, the ability to ask questions, the ability to analyze, the ability to collaborate, to communicate,
mm-hmm,
right? To make inferences, to draw conclusions, all those things that make us whole and give us the autonomy, right, that we're looking for. Like if you can't think critically, if you can't problem solve, if you can't ask questions or critique or analyze,
mm-hmm,
loads of information, then that is hindering your ability to be fully human. Because a full realized human being can make choices, they can think critically, they can analyze,
mm-hmm.
they can look at their situations and their environments and critique it and figure out what to do to make it better. And so those are the things that I think we should be teaching our children from the time they step into our classrooms to the time that they leave.
So houseway. Because I mean, because that's a lot. I mean, it has me thinking like, people be getting mad at the new math. Like they be.
Is it a lot?
You said what?
Is it a lot? Is it a lot though? Because some schools are getting it, some kids are getting it.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So is it a lot? Is it
I'm
impossible?
gonna say it's not impossible. I think it's definitely possible. I mean, shoot, I wouldn't be doing the work I do if I don't think it's possible. But like, it just seems,
Yeah,
like I mean, it's a lot of skills in there. Thinking
it
critically,
is.
asking questions, communicating, critiquing, analyze. I just think about Memphis as a whole right now. If our kids in the city, if they had that, oh, I'm pissed off. Do I really got to pull this gat on this dude? Like, really? Can I think this through and say, you know what, I'm just pissed off right now? Or
Yeah.
the emotional needs. I feel like I don't have another outlet, so I am gonna do what I need to do to survive. It's just it's
Yeah.
a lot packed in there. What do you say to?
Because nobody
Go ahead. What you?
say nobody's born, nobody wakes up, nobody just chooses to engage in criminal behavior. If we're speaking specifically about
Mm-hmm.
Memphis and what's going on in our climate, it's like if people had opportunities, if they had education, if they had the skills to be able to regulate and manage their emotions, we would make better choices.
Absolutely.
And those choices, I think, start with education. We're sending our kids to school for 12, 13 years, and they're leaving those schools empty,
Mm,
empty, and trying to figure out how to survive and feel their emptiness in unhealthy ways that not only harm them, but also harm their communities and harm society.
mm.
So,
So when you say empty, tell me more about that. When you say that we spending 13 years in school and sometimes they leave empty. What do you tell us a little bit more about? Tell me a little bit more about that.
well, when they leave our schools, they're not leaving with the skills that we just talked about, those emotional, those social, those academic skills. And so if you were in school for 12 years, however many weeks, however many hours a day, and you're barely graduating high school, or you don't have the skills to apply for a job or to apply for college
Mhm.
or whatever it is you want to do in life, you should leave school prepared.
Right.
And I know that it can happen because it happens for others.
Mhm.
And so why is it for hours? And when I say hour, I'm talking about Black kids and I'm talking about Hispanic kids and other kids from marginalized communities. So leaving empty, it's like we're not, they're ill prepared
Mhm.
to walk out of school at 18, 17 and to go and live the lives that are fulfilling to them.
Mm. That's man, that's real deep. That's real deep because I have questions because I'm like, so what do you say to the educator that says that's not my job? I didn't sign up for this. I didn't
Well,
sign up to be your emotional well-being. I didn't sign up to teach you all this. My job is academic competence. I'm supposed to come in here and teach you these math problems. I'm not supposed to teach you how to manage your emotions. That ain't my job. What do you say to that person?
well, the first thing I say is it's time for you to find another profession. That's the first thing I say. The second thing I say is you can't teach them if they're not coming to your class ready to learn. So if you're going to say I'm only going to focus on academics when you know you have students coming to your class that can't even focus on the learning because of all the structural issues or because of all the internal issues that are happening in our schools that are not being dealt with, that are not allowing teachers to really reach students in not just the academic, but also the social and emotional. So if you are a teacher and you don't believe, if you are not committed to disrupting these systems, then you've got to find something else to do because that is you're part of the problem. You're perpetuating these systemic
Mm-hmm.
issues. So it's not my job. I'm just here to do this. I'm just here for my check. You got mine, you got yours. I don't care. All of that, like no, it's not going to fly. And if that's how you feel, if that's what you believe, then
Mm-hmm.
you gotta find something else to do.
Well,
So,
y'all heard it, y'all. Listen, teaching is a lot more. But I think when I hear you say that, I told you this on the last rookie reset. That's what pissed me off. That's what pissed me off as a new teacher because
when they
I
say,
was like, "Yo, this ain't my job, G."
yeah,
Like I signed up to do these little math problems because I really wanted to be a PE teacher, and now I'm teaching math, and I'm supposed to deal with all this other stuff you're dealing with. And I think that's so blindsiding. I think
it
to a
is.
lot of new teachers.
It
Hmm.
is. And our teacher education programs are ineffective and they are misleading and miseducating our teachers because there is no way you should step into a classroom and not have a deep understanding of what it is you are dealing with. And when I say what it is you are dealing with, I mean all of the inequities that our students face that make it really hard and really difficult for teachers to go in and do quote unquote their job. Right? We have all
Hmm.
these other barriers, external factors and internal factors that are preventing us from doing our job and that are causing us to say things like, this is not my job, I don't care, this is hard, because we're not
Mm,
prepared. And we're not prepared.
mm,
We're not being
mm,
prepared to go up
mm,
against this mountain that we are fighting when it comes to trying to create meaningful and rich learning experiences for underserved students.
that's very deep. That's very deep. And if y'all want to teach an edu program, holla at me. Y'all heard it. The rookies play, but no, I'm just kidding. No, but
Yes,
also
holla at her for the rookie reset playbook.
okay, listen. But no, also for real though, but that is so true. Cause my teacher prep program did not prepare me. Like I
Yes.
was not even ready. I was like, wait a minute. Why you coming at me like this? I'm about to clap back at you. What's going on? Why you acting like this? And it
We
really was
weren't
like,
ready. We weren't ready. We weren't
no,
ready.
we weren't ready. Cause it was like, oh, you want me to be I'm upset with you about your homework. The feds just raided your house. You really think that you were concerned about these five little math problems? No, no, you're not. So I wanna dig deeper in there because you said there are external and internal factors impacting what inequities. You said in some external internal. Could you tell us just like some examples of those that could impact this impacting? I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you know what I mean.
I know what you're trying to say. So if we think
Mm,
about external factors, like you just mentioned one of them, our students experience a lot of trauma outside of school, a lot of
mm,
trauma for whatever reason. But the reason I'll
mm,
name is just the lack of opportunity and the lack of access to things that, again, make us whole and full human beings. And so when our
mm,
students are experiencing those things, whether it's um, maybe they don't have enough food to eat, or maybe they don't have an environment at home where they can study or learn, or maybe they have families that have other responsibilities and are not able to be as involved as they would like to be. We think
yeah.
about like systemic inequities. We think about housing and healthcare and food insecurity and employment, like coming from families that are living below the poverty line, all those external factors that impact, and their children, right? We're dealing with kids that are as young as 3, and they can be 17, 18. They are still children. They are still very young, still developing, and still trying to figure out how to deal with all the things that are coming up against, especially in a city like Memphis, where we just have so many challenges for our students and their families. So that's external. But when we think about internal,
Mm,
um, one of the things that I like to talk about is like um, school leaders and like principals and teachers who, like us, were not prepared or have not received the support and the training and the development to really meet the unique needs of the students that come into the building. Then you might have internal factors like funding, right? Some schools lack funding and resources and access to things that wraparound services or counselors or psychologists, those internal things that could be a great benefit to students if those programs are rich and meaningful and available to students. So those
mm,
are things, external and internal, that just impact a child's readiness and ability to.
mm, mm. Dang, it's like a double-edged sword. I mean sword, you know what I mean? Because it's like I it's almost like I think about outside of the building, I'm dealing with maybe a lack of access. I'm experiencing trauma. I may not, have food. Like, and then it's another layer like housing. There's food insecurity. I don't like my environment. Is that safe?
Or
But
maybe
then I
you're
wonder.
not coming to school. My attendance. Some of our students are very transient. They come to school 2, 3 times a week and they miss 2 days or they're late.
Mhm.
Like those things too impact the child's ability to grow intellectually.
Absolutely, man. It's just man, when I hear that, it just I don't know. It almost take me back to like being back in the building. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, just
Hmm.
you have this. Um, it's almost like you get this empathy when you start to understand. just some of the experiences, because like I said, it's indoor outdoor. When you're in the building, if I'm not prepared, because I listen, we say it all the time, I should have been teaching nobody kids my first year, okay? Like
Yeah.
baby,
And
listen, you
that's another internal factor or internal barrier is when we think about teaching over the last few years, like teacher shortages. Like there are schools right now, December, what's today, 12th, that have multiple vacancies. I know a school that has one teacher on their seventh grade team. Seventh grade usually has what, maybe 4 or 5 teachers based on whatever kind. One teacher and the rest are subs. So that means that child has missed 6 months of instruction in 5 of 6 classes because they only have one teacher. And when
mhm,
are we gonna make up for it? We're still trying to make up for the for the learning loss that happened over the pandemic. We're still trying to make up for the learning loss that's just been happening for decades. So children who have absolutely no control over what they're getting when they walk into a school are now sitting in a classroom for 6 months without a teacher. Without
yeah,
it. So teacher shortages, and then our teachers are tired, overworked, underpaid. So the ones,
mhm.
some of them that are showing up, they're not able to show up as their best selves. They can't give it all they got because they too are not being developed or supported or given what they need to be able to meet all of these different needs that the children come to them with.
Yo, this thing here, it's lots of layers to this thing.
So many
I
layers to them.
mean,
You gotta peel them back, peel them back, peel them.
man, man, it's so many layers to it.
Yeah,
Because man, it's just ooh, that thing, it's this thing real deep.
it is
This
real.
thing, I mean, it's like outside, inside, then it's like another layer. Because I didn't, I mean, of course, the teacher, but if I'm not equipped, if I'm not resourced, you better to get you're not getting this level 10 teaching. You might be getting a level 2, level 3, because I ain't got it. I mean, and something else you said, even like the emotional management piece. I thought about that. I'm like, dang, I'm an adult and I still have to, I mean, I have to check myself. If I have no tools, I have
Yes.
no tools, like I have no tools, like yo, I might man, everything is a level 10 to me. A level 1 offense is a level 10 because I have no tools on how to process through emotions. Like, hell, I've been in therapy and I'm still learning to do this. So if you ain't getting no support,
That's what I'm
shh,
saying. And teachers are having it hard, man. I am telling you, like, I'm working with teachers, I'm instructing them, I'm meeting with them, talking with them, and I'm also working with teachers across the country. So I have teachers in Philly, teachers in Atlanta, teachers in
mm,
Jersey, and across the board, they are struggling. Like
mm,
struggling. And who do you think that's impacting the most?
kids.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
teachers are humans too. Teachers are people, they are humans. They need support, they need development, they need guidance. And when they're not getting that, they too are empty. So empty teachers producing empty students, and we just got a bunch of empty folks running around trying to figure life out and going toward alternatives that aren't the best for themselves or their communities.
So how what would you suggest if, because you said I'm on a struggle bus? Well, one two questions I have. So the first one is, what are some of the biggest challenges that new teachers are having around this idea? And then also, what are some things that teachers can do to address that?
When you say challenges, do you mean specifically around culturally relevant pedagogy or just challenges in
We ain't even got into the definition of that. So just listen, you just whatever, girl. We ain't even got to the definition. So, girl, what's the challenges that people have right
okay,
now?
one of the biggest things that, and I'm going to speak to what teachers come to me with when I'm talking with them or when I'm, reading over their assignments, when we're talking in class, is classroom management. A lot of them struggle with classroom management, and I can't imagine what it's like now. I just, I taught for 10 years, and my first year and my ninth year were the most challenging, most trauma. And think about it, a ninth year teacher, I'm feeling like a first year teacher. The most challenging, most traumatizing years of my life. And I left the classroom in 2018 before the pandemic. So I can only imagine now what teachers are experiencing when it comes to
Mhm.
behavior, managing students' behavior, students who are coming with so much. A lot we've already talked about that. So that's one of the things teachers
Mhm.
are struggling with. The other thing I hear teachers talk a lot about is trying to meet the needs of every single student in their classroom. Our
Mhm.
our classrooms are really diverse, right? We might think
Mhm.
racially there's, some similarities and class wise, but our children are very unique. They have unique skills, they have unique abilities, unique learning needs. And as a teacher, you have to be able to tap into that, right? When I taught school, I taught mostly secondary. I had several students that were below grade level. When I taught middle school math, maybe less than 10 out of the 75 students that I worked with were performing on grade level. So that's a challenge. If you're teaching middle school or high school, trying to teach students grade level standards that are,
Mhm.
if you're a seventh grade teacher, trying to teach student that's on the second grade level or first grade level, or if you
Yeah.
teach students that have disabilities, those extra challenges that they may come with. And so trying to fix, because every child can learn, don't get it twisted. Every kid is capable of learning and achieving at high levels, right? But not
Mhm.
every teacher knows how to meet students where they are. And that to me
Mhm.
is the responsibility of our teacher education programs, our district, and our school professional development opportunities. So classroom
Mhm.
management, and then meeting the diverse needs of our students, both
Mhm.
socially and emotionally. Because that
Mm.
classroom management, that's what got us.
Man, they told us cat ragged, baby. Listen, I'm telling you, y'all see us on here talking our professional, but baby, they tore us up.
Am I teaching Chucky? Who is this? I cannot help you. I ain't come back tomorrow. Nope. Get me out of here. That is how. Listen, and we're probably gonna get into, but one way you don't respond to classroom management, don't yell at the kids, don't holler at them, because they'll two of them 10 years. I'm going home horse. Like I looked
Right,
crazy.
don't do it. Don't do it. Listen, Keela came for me one day, baby. And she came for me. Listen, I tell that story in my speeches all the time. Be like, yo, I tried to comfort her. She said, and you she said, and you wear the same pants every day.
Wait,
I
you
had
do
no
what?
class act for her.
You were saying? And them kids are ruthless. I bet today they were. Kids will say, they will tell you like it is. So don't argue with them. Don't get into no power struggle. Don't raise your voice. Let it go. You let it go.
Mm-mm. Don't do it.
There
Don't do it because they will say
are more
something.
effective research strategy based ways to manage, to not even manage, but to create a classroom culture where there's mutual respect, both on coming from the teachers and from the students, and where everybody just respects each other and values each other. There are ways to create classroom cultures like that, and unfortunately we didn't really learn how to do that our first year.
Did not. Did not. Did
And
not.
yeah,
Definitely did not.
yeah. So
Yes, listen, they'll say something you can't say nothing back to. So y'all heard her loud and clear. Do not do it. Do not yell at them kids. Don't try to argue them power struggles. Let it go.
yes,
And I love what you said there too about use a research-based strategy
yes,
that can support you with that mutual respect. And especially love hearing you say that because too often I see where it's just like you think just because they kids they don't deserve respect though.
absolutely.
Like they are human beings just like we are. And I mean, it's like no wonder they're not learning.
Mhm,
You want to know why they don't understand this?
mhm.
They feel like you don't like them and you're mad disrespectful and they gonna give you that heat back. Okay,
It's true, and I
so
think even more now than maybe when I was in school or when we were in school, the kids are different, and that's not a bad thing, right? We evolve, generations change, we respond and react different, socially or whatever as time goes on. And so I think our children
mhm,
today, they're much more vocal. They're much more opinionated. They have this, it's one of those things where you do have to, it has to be a relationship, a two-way relate. You're building relationships with them, they're building relationship with you. You're building that trust. Gone are the days where you respect me because I'm an adult, or you respect me because I'm an authority figure. No. Mm-mm, gonna lose some
Yeah,
time.
it is. It is. Y'all heard the key word in relationship, relate.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
Mm-hmm. Something that I remember Miss Lovell saying, when she was on the Ricky Reset, she said
Miss Love?
teaching. Miss Love was on the Ricky Reset.
I think
Yeah.
that was a
Yeah. Yeah. I
while ago,
remember
right? Okay,
it was a while ago, it was a couple years ago.
okay.
But something she said teaching is a one-on-one relationship.
Hmm.
She said you have a different relationship with every kid in that classroom.
Yes,
Because she was like something as simple as knowing their name
yes,
builds a relationship.
yes.
Like
And
something
saying
as simple as
their name.
that. Yeah.
When you speak to them,
Mhm.
saying their name, like even as an adult, when I'm talking to somebody and they name drop in the conversation, like my name, like, yeah, Tamera, like that makes me feel, I don't know, it makes me feel special. Like even something that's small, like good morning, Miss Fitzgerald, or good morning, John, or good morning, Keisha. Like
Mhm.
recognizing and acknowledging their name is something very, very
Mhm.
small that can make a huge difference.
It does. I've been reading this book called How to Know a
Okay.
Person, and it's about like being able to see people. That's my push these days, trying to really see people for who they are and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But that's one of the big things, like when you talk about like people saying your name and stuff like that, it's really about being
Yeah.
seen. And our students, especially, like when we think about like just the different layers, like like being seen, man, that just like the research behind it, just in general, like it can change the game, like for the good and the bad. Like if I'm not being seen at home and somebody offers me attention, then it could go
Yeah.
left. But if it's somebody that has positive intentions and really like pouring into me, like it's so powerful, and I think that's the really importance of having a great teacher. I think just somebody really seeing and knowing you and believing in you, like it just changed the game. It's really
Yeah,
powerful.
having a teacher that can really foster a strong sense of belonging. Like that's one of the things we talk about. One of
Mhm.
our first two classes with my teachers is we talk about how do we create an environment where students feel like they belong, where they feel like they're valued, where they feel like they can be their authentic selves, and where they feel like they're seen and that they are contributing members of the classroom.
Hmm. Well, I'm curious. How do they do that? That's I think that's really important. How do they foster that sense of belonging?
One of the first things I think, it's not even just the first thing, is the always thing. The thing we should always be doing is getting to know our students. I mean, getting
Mm.
to know as much as we can about them. And I'm gonna go ahead and say it, it's impossible to know everything about our students because they
Mm.
are
Of course.
constantly evolving, or everything about a person in general. We're constantly evolving, we're constantly changing,
Mm.
constantly experiencing things. So learning about your students is an ongoing thing. It never stops. It's from day one to
Mm.
day 180. You are learning about your students. So not only are you learning about them, you are taking that information, that knowledge that you have gained, and it is showing up in your classroom. That is how you create a sense of belonging. If students see
Mm.
you investing in their interests, their strengths, their homes, their communities, their likes, their dislikes, their needs, if they see you taking
Mm.
an interest in that, and then they see you in a lesson or in a little plant that you may have put up or a poster that you put up, the
Mm.
student said they like this artist or they like this thing, like being able to see themselves in the space and being able to see that their teacher knows them and is using that information to teach them. That's how we foster a sense of belonging. Creating rituals with our students, giving our students roles and responsibilities in the classroom, allowing them to contribute to the learning experience, like asking them for their
Mm.
input, their advice,
Mhm.
feedback, and not only asking for it, but implementing it, right? So that's how students see
Mhm.
themselves. My teacher has extracted this information
Mhm.
from me, and now I'm seeing it show up in my lessons. I'm seeing it show up in maybe
Mhm.
she's taking that they're taking me out. I'm seeing it show up in, if there's like some sort of cultural event at school, I'm seeing my interests show up in that way. That's how I feel like I belong. Seeing representation, right? If I'm a Black kid or a Hispanic kid, I want to see people that look like me in the curriculum. I want to see and hear
Mhm.
stories of people in my community, right?
Mhm.
Validating me and affirming me and showing me through your actions and your interactions that who I am matters.
That's and those I really love those because I think something that I've heard you say that I have not heard anyone else say.
See,
And I'm actually like, I'm like, girl, I might tell you, this gonna be girl. You done gave me a gem to put in my speeches, okay?
that friend, that
Okay,
borrowed still.
okay, listen. So check this out. So something you said because you say, "Oh, you got to take the time to know your students. You got to know your kids. You got to," but it's like, and it needs to show up in your actions.
It,
Like it should be evident from day one to 180.
yeah,
I'm asking you what you think. I'm going to your game. I'm going like whatever it is, and it is evident that I have taken the time
yeah.
to know.
Every
Mhm.
time a teacher sits down and plans a lesson or designs a task that they are going to administer to their student, they should be thinking, who in my class or what can I do? What small thing can I do in this lesson to reach this student or this group of students? Every single lesson, you should be thinking about something bite sized that you can do based off what you have learned about your students. Like you're responding to who they are and you're using that information. If we do that little by little, day by day, student by, you can pick a student you can say, today's lesson plan is going to be designed around Christina. I'm gonna look at Christina's data. I'm gonna think about her interests. I'm gonna pull out that student survey that I give at the beginning of the year. Put
Right.
in file 13 and never pull it out. I'm gonna pull that out and I'm gonna sit next to it with my lesson plan, and I'm gonna use that information to frame a question around this student
Mm-hmm.
or come up with an accommodation or a modification that sort of meets this student's particular need. If you did that for every lesson, think about the impact
Mm-hmm.
you would have on our students. And I think that's one of the things that's missing when we're planning our lessons. We're planning our lessons too often without our students in mind because we're following this scripted curriculum or we trying to teach these test taking skills or we behind 2 weeks and we ain't got time to do all this and all the things
Mm-hmm.
that take out
Right.
that take the student out of the center of it.
Mhm. Yeah, cuz that's something that cuz I think when I first started coaching around the standards and stuff, I remember I tried to teach a lesson. That thing fell so flat. I wasn't thinking about what good teaching was. Like what is it like? How do I make this relatable to them? How do I cuz I mean, shoot, hell I taught functions through
Yeah.
relationships and they was on that thing. You hear me? They was on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you do have to like internalize, almost like make it your own, because that's what I'm learning just in general about anything. Like you can take the strategies and you can take, but at the end of the day, it's like what makes it rock is you being you. So you gotta bring yourself in there, but you also gotta bring the people that you serving in the conversation too about how you pray. Because I do think sometimes people get caught up in I just got to follow the script. Back script. You gotta like, long as the main thing, make it your own.
What if that script doesn't meet your students' needs? Then what? Now, this is a rhetorical question. I'm just saying. I'm
Yeah.
just saying. Like we we have to be creative. We have to take autonomy, but we have to be taught that. We, as in teachers, like we're not like our teacher programs are not equipping us with what we need to do this work and to do it well. Unfortunately,
And that's so unfortunate. But if y'all want to do it well, holla at your girl. Listen, I'm gonna teach you how to do it well. I'm
holla
gonna
at
teach you too.
her. She gonna teach.
And you better holler at her. Listen. I need to bring you in. Listen, you about to be a part of the project,
Go
okay?
ahead,
Listen.
sign me up. Put me in the game, coach.
Listen, let's go. Like I feel like, well, anyways, I'm over here getting ideas. Anyways, okay. I come with
You are
idea in a
an
minute.
idea generator for real.
Man, what you said. Now listen, now I've got to skip. Anyways, okay, another conversation. All right. I ain't even got into what's culturally relevant pedagogy. I feel like we might have to do a
And
part
that's
two.
fine.
But
That's fine.
okay, okay. So just for the people to know, because I still ain't got the definition right. I done sent this thing. I said this anyway. So what is the actual definition of culturally relevant pedagogy? And you told me that culturally responsive. Did I say culturally relevant, or culturally
You
responsive?
you said
Which one?
culturally responsive teaching, and it is a thing. Culturally responsive teaching is a thing, and culturally relevant
Okay,
pedagogy is a concept. And people use them interchangeably all the time, but there are some similarities, but they are two different concepts. And so I will start with defining. I'm trying to give you a short answer. Defining culturally relevant
okay,
pedagogy.
okay,
So culturally relevant pedagogy is is
okay,
a theoretical framework, like a blueprint
okay.
or a roadmap that
Hmm.
outlines the successful practices and methods of teachers that teach Black kids or children that come from historically marginalized communities. But the original study that was done by Dr. Gloria Lesson Billings, she studied 8 teachers of all ages, races, that taught Black kids. And so she observed them
Hmm.
for, I think, 2 years, observed them, studied them, interviewed them, all these things. And so, from what she learned about these teachers, their characteristics, their dispositions, their behaviors, their
Hmm.
beliefs, their values, all of those things she learned about those teachers, she put that information together and created the culturally relevant pedagogy theory. And what she learned, the common characteristics of all of those teachers that she studied, came down to
Hmm.
3 components.
Okay,
So culturally relevant pedagogy is made up of 3 components, and they are
okay,
teachers that are culturally relevant, are critically
okay,
conscious, they
okay.
are culturally competent, and they can advance student learning. So when you think of culturally relevant pedagogy, you got to think about those 3 components. It's not, it has to be all 3 components. If it's not all 3 of those components, it's not culturally relevant pedagogy. So critical consciousness, cultural competence, and student learning. So culturally responsive teaching. So if I just gave you those 3, critical consciousness, cultural
Hmm.
competence, and student learning, culturally responsive teaching would fall under that cultural competence category.
Oh,
Is this idea of taking the students home and their community culture and bridging the gap between that and school culture. So using students' culture, their backgrounds to inform and guide the instruction that happens in the classroom.
okay, okay. When I hear you say that, it makes me think about you were talking about rituals, and that's something that she talked about in that book, Culture Responsive Teaching the Brain. She was like, that's one of the
Yes.
ways that it can be more culturally responsive. But now okay, it's starting to make so culture responsive teaching is a bucket under the culturally relevant
Yes, I would
pedagogy.
say Zaretta
That's
Hammond, who's the author of the book you're talking about, culturally responsive teaching in the brain. She says in her, I don't know if she says this in the book, but she said before that her ideas and thoughts around that concept is derived a lot from Gloria Lesson Billings' culturally relevant pedagogy, specifically the culturally competent component. So that's the difference. Culturally relevant pedagogy encompasses 3 main things. Culturally responsive
Mhm.
teaching really hits on that culture piece, that using culture to drive instruction.
Okay. And culture, you mean like my
Yes,
historical,
you're right.
like where I come
Your
from.
culture, so like your way
You
of living, your way of thinking, your way of believing. Culture, it could be like that deep level culture, like your beliefs about your perspectives about things, or it can be that surface level culture, what you eat, your language, which how y'all dress, how
Mhm.
y'all speak, how y'all celebrate holidays. So using
Right.
students' background, who they are, their identities, and bringing that
Mhm.
into the classroom. That's what culturally responsive teaching does. It bridges that gap between home and school, or home and community and school.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So these three buckets under the culturally relevant pedagogy. This is a theoretical
It's a
framework.
theoretical framework, a
Of
blueprint.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Yes.
Okay. And so when we look at what's been successful for Black and Brown students or groups that have been historically marginalized, these three pieces are evident in their practice.
Yes, yes. When she studied those teachers, she had all of this
Mhm.
data. And when she synthesized
Okay.
that data, and the common themes that she found was they were culturally competent, critically conscious, and they knew how to advance student learning, or they knew how to make students grow academically or intellectually.
Okay, well, I will see. I'm like now. I want to see, was I culturally responsive? Okay, I mean culturally relevant.
I
Culturally relevant.
we I wasn't. I
Okay.
had it in me, but it wasn't nourished and developed. And I think that comes from a really strong teacher prep program that can
Okay.
tap into, because some of this, oh yeah, I'll get to it later. But anyway, go ahead. Go ahead, ask your question.
Okay. So could you just go into a little bit deeper about like what each one of these buckets are so that our community can know what that means when you say critically conscious, culturally competent, which you kind of talked a little bit, and advanced student outcomes.
Yes. So we'll start with critical consciousness. So a teacher that is critically conscious or developing their critical conscious, because it's an ongoing thing. You can't just be critical
Mhm.
conscious in this. You, as long as
Okay.
humans evolve, you will always be developing your critical consciousness. And so all that means is you have an understanding of society, of social structures, and how it impacts, specifically as a teacher, how it impacts schooling, right? So you're able to critique what's going on in society. You're able to critique social structures. And what I mean by social structures is systems of oppression or systemic racism. Like you're able to understand those structures and how they impact the work that we do in the classroom. I don't think
Mhm.
nobody should be teaching if they don't understand how society operates and how that impacts the work that we do in the classroom, because it absolutely impacts the work that we do. It impacts the funding, it impacts the training that we receive, it impacts the resources that we receive, it impacts how our students come to school. And so understanding society helps us better understand our students, therefore helps us better deliver instruction to them. So that's what it's
Mm.
about, that awareness of of what's going on in the world, both historically and
Mhm.
current.
Okay. Okay. So this is almost um like understanding what's really going
Yes,
on
and
in
being
the
able,
streets. Like you can't be
you
blind to that.
can't. You can't. You have to know how race, how class, how religion, how sexual orientation, how sexual how all of that impacts our experiences in school. Now that's just in school.
Mhm.
That's just as teachers, but all of that impacts our healthcare. All of that impacts our job opportunities. All of that impacts our mental health. It impacts all the things, but I'm just talking about as a teacher. You need to know how those things impact the work we do in the classroom, because teaching is very political. All of the decisions that are made by teachers are made about teaching and learning are made by politicians. So you can't be a teacher and say I'm not into politics, because the work that you do is decided by people that we vote for. School boards, state legislators, city councils,
Mhm.
county commissions that decide whether or not they want to fund schools. So you have to
Mhm.
be critically aware of all of those things that are happening, as much as possible. Like you're always learning about those things, because it impacts the work that we do. It really
Mhm.
does. So that's critical
Um
consciousness.
okay. Now what I love you said there is that this is not a process that never ends. And I love that because it has me thinking about this post I saw from what's that girl name? Oh, Kerry
Oh,
Washington.
I love her.
Eh, yes, yes, she's amazing. But she had a post and she was just talking about how um one of her friends was like, "You've been going to your therapist for like 10 years. Like, is this ever gonna stop?" She was like, "Oh no, this process is never undone. Like my consciousness will
Will
continue to be
continue.
it will continue." And I think that's the thing that I kind of hear from this. Like, and it is that this does not stop. Like you may learn something now, and then it's like, wait a minute, like, oh, I see this, I see that, and maybe I need to adjust how I'm showing up in this way. Like it does not stop because it's so deep, like consciousness, like raising it in general. Like I could see how this is some like it this process doesn't end and you will consistently be evolving. So I think sometimes people think that this is I'm critically
No,
conscious. Now I'm woke. It's like, nah, the fact that you open your eyes, I think it becomes even more
it's,
challenging because you see it
it's
now.
so much we don't know. It is so
Mm-hmm.
much we do not know. I'm in this stage in my life where I'm trying to teach myself so many things that I did not learn in school, both
Right.
K-12 and college, not because and some of it is we weren't exposed to it. We weren't exposed to a lot of the
Right.
things. And it's even happening now when we think about book bans and how they're limiting the things that we can learn about that are directly related to developing that critical consciousness. They don't want us to develop that critical consciousness because once we become the more critically conscious we become, the more aware we become of the lack that is systemically designed, um, the powers that be don't want that. They don't want that.
Mm,
And that's why we're not
mhm,
seeing it. That's why we're seeing again the book bans and the banning of certain types of knowledge, that expose us to things that are unjust, that are inequitable, that are dehumanizing and oppressive.
mm, right. And it's almost like outside of what we already know. When I hear you say it again, it's just like we've almost got to be willing to challenge the narratives of things that we have been taught. So you do have to be able to think critically and stuff like
Yeah,
that so that you can, like almost like see for
yeah,
yourself,
and that's
because if not, you just take the knowledge that you've been given and just like, oh, this is the reality. And it's not always
yeah,
the
and
case.
schooling shouldn't be about imparting knowledge or making students assimilate or trying to indoctrinate them or make them think a certain way. It's teaching them how to think. It's presenting them with multiple perspectives, multiple viewpoints, multiple ways of doing, thinking, and being, and then giving them the skills to be able to to digest all of that, internalize that, and make meaning of that in their own way. It's teaching people how to
Mhm.
think, not, I like to say, I like to teach people how to think and not what to think, if that makes sense.
That's good.
Uh,
How to think, not what to think.
Critical
Okay.
con you say that critical consciousness is about critique. It's about learning how to critique, and it's about learning how to challenge the status quo, to critique society
Mm,
and to challenge society.
mhm.
And teachers need to be able
That's
to do that,
good.
and teachers need to be able to teach students how to do that. That's that critical consciousness
Mm.
component.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so the culturally competent. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, what is that bucket about?
So, cultural competence is this idea that we are fluent in our own culture and at least one other culture. So, it's learning about our culture. When I say our, if we're teaching Black kids or we're teaching Hispanic kids, it's about being able to accept and affirm and celebrate who I am while also accepting, affirming, and celebrating other cultures. So it's this idea about
Mhm,
learning about the different ways of knowing, the different ways of thinking, the different ways of being, the different ways of believing
mhm,
and behaving, um, and
mhm,
acknowledging each other's differences, learning about who you are, your identity,
mhm,
how your background has shaped who you are, learning about your culture, how that impacts the decisions that you make. And that's for both teachers and students, because teachers can't teach kids how to be culturally competent if they themselves aren't culturally competent. So I feel like, go ahead.
You mean the teacher like the teacher him her they
The
self they got to be competent in who
Who
they
they
are.
are,
Like,
yes. A lot of us don't know our own backgrounds. A lot of us don't know our own identities. A lot of us don't know what has influenced or shaped the way that we believe, the way that we
mhm,
show up. Because that absolutely, who we are impacts how we teach. And so we don't know who we are if we're not examining ourselves and doing that deep reflection and that deep introspection about who we are and how this shows up in this classroom, then that's a disservice to
Mhm.
ourselves and a disservice to our students. So not only are we learning ourselves, we got to be competent about the students that we teach. If I'm a white teacher and I'm teaching a room full of black kids and a room full of Hispanic kids, and I know nothing about their experiences, nothing about their backgrounds, nothing about their beliefs and their perspectives and what has shaped that, then I am a disservice to them and to myself. That
Mm.
culture.
Ooh, I got some
I'm just thinking
questions.
about white teachers, black teachers too. Anybody that is working with a group of students, you need to know who they are. You cannot teach who you do not know.
Okay, listen. You know, when I heard you say that, because I was like, listen, I was a black teacher out here biasing against black kids. Okay, listen, listen, because you know the black experience. This is what I was thinking. I was like, the black experience is not a
It's
monolith.
not.
Everyone ain't having the same black
Mm-mm.
experience, and I think I just because I'm like we were both black, but baby, I was not culturally competent out here. Okay. Like I didn't understand. I was like, "Oh, I don't care about you not bringing back your homework." Oh, maybe because you're hungry or whatever. Like, like I just man, that's oh, I had a follow-up question. It'll come back to me.
Yes.
Um so how do they do okay,
So
we'll
that was
get there.
cultural competence.
But
Last, let's go to
cultural
the last
competence.
one, student learning. And
Okay.
that's
Okay,
important too.
student
So
learning.
student learning is just about having the ability to advance students' intellectual capabilities. So the things I talked about, teaching them how to think critically, how to analyze, how to solve problems, how all those things, right? It's about creating
Mhm.
those rich, meaningful learning experience based off who your students are. Like going back to that cultural competence piece, your lessons, the way you approach learning in your classrooms to be driven by your students and their needs. And so that's having strong content knowledge, that's having strong pedagogical knowledge. So you know what to teach and you know how to teach it. If you don't know how, you know how to figure it out. You know how to go and do some research. You know how to tap into your
Mhm.
resources. You are well versed in your curriculum. You know, you know how to design lessons. You know how to craft questions. You know how to write objectives. You know how to unpack standards. You know how to collect data. You know how to analyze it. You know how to respond to it. All of that falls under student learning. You know how to involve students in the learning process. So you allow them to question and to discuss and to debate and to offer what it is
Mhm.
they want to learn. So that's what student
Mhm.
learning is about. And it's not about just achievement, right? Because sometimes we think about student learning as just achievement. So achievement meaning proficient and mastery or basic below. It's not just about that. It's also about growth because no matter who you are as a teacher and no matter who the student is that comes into your room, that student, when they come in there on day one, you need to there's some goals need to be set and they need to leave your classroom better than they came. So they need to show some intellectual growth because achievement can be confusing because if you teach ninth grade and you have a student that comes in on the second grade level, it's very difficult to get them to reach their proficient and then advanced on the grade level test. But if that student went from second grade to fourth grade because of some really great interventions you did, or some really great supports, or ways that you exposed
Mhm.
into that grade level content that help fill some of those gaps, that is student learning. So it's about growth and achievement. But those come with knowing who your students are, what their current needs are, and then planning around that to make sure that they are either reaching those achievement levels or showing significant
Mhm.
signs of growth.
Mm. That's something a reflection that comes up as I hear you say that because if this is culturally relevant pedagogy, um I'm wondering if at times that there's an imbalance. It's such a focus on the instruction, the advancing student outcomes that if we forget about those other two pieces,
It's
then
not culturally relevant pedagogy, and
it ain't cultural
it's
pedagogy.
not culturally relevant
Mm-mm.
pedagogy, and it's a disservice to the students. And Dr. Gloria Leslie Billings says you cannot, if she goes into a classroom, she should be able to see all three of those components come alive in a classroom if that teacher is a developing culture. Because I like to say developing, because you just don't become culturally relevant and that's it. It's an ongoing thing. So you should be able to see it
Mm,
in the actions. You should be able to hear it in the language. You should be able to see it in the classroom decorations or the classroom design. You
mhm.
should be able to see it and hear it in students and how they interact with each other. It's a whole algorithm, if you will. Like it's so many different components to this machine that operates, and if one component of the machine breaks, then the whole machine shuts down.
Mm, yeah,
So I
that's
love that you said that. We do
yeah.
neglect, and even though we neglect the other two, cultural competence and critical consciousness, maybe we still ain't really doing a whole lot in the student learning component. So we neglect
Mhm.
and so all three of those matter. All three of those must be present for it to be culturally relevant pedagogy.
Yeah, that's really good. So, listen, I want to be respectful of your time.
Yeah.
So, yes, I did. So that listen, I know you can't be on here all day, but listen, yeah, just know it's gonna be a part two to this because I ain't even get to none of the questions. Like we didn't even listen. It's always a fun, it's always a fun conversation though. So if I'm a teacher, I'm a new teacher, and I'm like, girl, these three buckets, I know I'm developing and stuff, but I don't even know where to begin. What would you say are like 2 to 3 things that a new teacher could do right now to work on these three buckets in terms of coming, having that culturally relevant pedagogy?
Okay. I'm gonna start off by saying this is not something that happens overnight. Like it takes years and hours of development and learning and studying and practice to really reach a level of cultural relevance that is going to show up in students' outcomes. So I don't want any teacher to think that, oh, I can do this one magical thing and tomorrow my class is going to be fire. It's going to be a vibe. It's going to be great. No, no, don't set yourself up for that. It takes time and practice, like, to develop those skills and abilities.
Right.
So, two things. One thing I would
Okay.
say that a new teacher can do today and always is to get to know your students. Get methodically, tactically, strategically, intentionally plan ways to get to know your students. We have to know the students that we teach. I said this already. We cannot teach people we do not know. And that goes for me as an adult, as a teacher, someone who teaches adults, or work, if you're someone who works with adults, you have to build those relationships. You have to know who they are in order to be able to reach them. We got to learn as much as we can about our students. We got to learn about their experiences in school and outside of school. We've got to learn about their families. We've got to learn about their communities. We've got to learn about their interests. We've got to learn about their fears, their hopes, their dreams, their concerns.
Mm,
And you said this earlier, it's not just about learning. It's about using that information when you are planning your lessons. Like that is the bottom line. Don't learn all this information and not use it to impact your students' learning experiences. So you can learn about students. There are lots of ways you can learn about your students. You can learn about your students. I know some schools have morning meetings. Some teachers may do like classroom surveys. Some teachers might have one-on-ones. You can learn about your students just by listening in on their conversations in the lunchroom. You on lunch duty anyway. Walk around, listen in to what they say. You
yeah.
hear something interesting that, oh, I might, can write it down, keep a little pocket journal, pull out the notes app on your phone. Just, you're always collecting data. That's what it is. It's basically you're collecting data. You are collecting data on
Mhm.
who your students are, and you are using that to drive your instruction. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. There are many ways. You can Google, what are some things I can do? Ask ChatGPT, what are some things I can do to get to know my students? Make a list and commit to doing one a week, or
Mhm.
whatever your school side, whatever you have the capacity to do, but you need to be doing something to get to know your students. Other
Mhm.
thing is, so that's cultural competence. The other thing is around critical consciousness, because you said that we focus on student learning, but we kind of leave out the other two. So the other thing is we need to make a commitment as teachers to think, to feeling, to behaving, and to acting in ways that are going to disrupt systems of inequities. We have to disrupt those systems. We have to um, dismantle those. I got a thumb. Sorry, I got a thumb. Somebody just threw a thumbs up. They distracted.
Yeah, somebody threw a thumbs up. Come through, thumbs up. Let me see what that came.
But we have to learn about how race and class and identity shapes educational policies and practices. I said that everything that happens in
Mhm.
our schools is a decision that's made by somebody, by another human being. So teachers,
Mhm.
we have to, and I know it's a lot, but we have to be involved and critically conscious and aware of what's happening in society that's impacting what's happening in our classrooms. So those are two things: know your students and know what's
Mhm.
happening in society that's impacting your
Mhm.
classrooms.
So it's almost so two things. Y'all heard her. Get to know your students right
Yeah.
now. Just commit to it. And the other thing is critical consciousness. It's almost like understanding the systems and how you can disrupt those. So like you really got to understand what's going on um outside of what's happening inside of that
Oh,
classroom. That has me think, because sometimes I'd be like, yo, I don't care what the government does. I don't care, because at the end of the day it comes down to me and what I'm gonna do. I'm responsible for my success and stuff. I mean, with the help of God and other people, stuff like that. So I'm gonna challenge myself to just know a little bit about what's going on out here in these streets, reading articles and stuff like that.
and
So I think that's a good push for
And I
me.
think that something that helpful is, whether we believe it or not, those things impact us. They absolutely impact not just our students, but us as well. You know what I'm saying? And so
Mhm.
we have to, it's like almost our civic responsibility, our civic duty to pay attention
Mhm.
to the laws that are being made, to the decisions that are being made that impact us as teachers and that impact, like for example, classroom size. Somebody decides how many students goes into a classroom. That's just not anything that's just made up. Somebody or a group of people voted on that, right? And so think about, if teachers have a lot of power. We have a lot of power. We're just not exercising it. We're not exercising it. We're not
Mhm.
mobilizing. We're not galvanizing and using our power, our collective power, to make a difference for our students. I think
Mhm.
when we get to that point, when we say enough is enough, y'all, we tired of y'all mistreating our students and mistreating us and not giving us what we need, then we'll start to see some things shake. But that starts with developing our critical consciousness and being aware of what's
Mhm.
um, like in Memphis, we got a whole superintendent search going on, and we don't even know who the candidates are. We don't know who about to run. We don't know nothing because our elected have not
Mhm.
been keeping us informed.
Mm.
And so, as teachers, we have a right to know. We have a right to advocate for that, and we have a right to call our school board member and be like, "What's
Mhm.
going on?" And maybe superintendent search isn't your area of interest, but maybe you want to call them and be like, "Hey, my school needs this. What kind of support can you offer?" And maybe it doesn't have to. You can get your whole team of teachers to sign something, or send an email, or ask your school board member to come in your classroom and sit down and watch you teach.
And let me tell you something, them school board members will
Yeah,
do it. They will, they
so get
listen.
get you know that.
They make stuff happen. They make stuff happen, but I'm not sure if we utilize them
No,
enough. Like I don't reach out to my school board member once, and he made that thing happen.
we
Like he made it happen.
we vote for them. If we make some noise, if we gather the people, there's power in numbers and there's power in knowledge. And so
Mm,
we need to exercise that power, um,
mm,
and get what we deserve for ourselves and for our students and their families. So
yeah. It's so interesting. This whole thing, it just makes me well, not makes me, but it has me thinking just about therapy, like in general. Like this is what it is, you know what I mean? Because it's like, for me to get to know my students, I need to know myself.
Yes.
For me to do this for someone else, you've got to do it to yourself.
Yes.
And like you said, like, how can I know about who you are as a human being, your experience, if I'm not fully aware of
Mm-hmm.
like my own culture, like my, some of those things and stuff like that. Um, yes, it's real deep. It's real deep. So y'all heard it. Get to know your students, critical conscious, raise that critical consciousness,
Yes.
y'all. So if, as we close out, if you just had to stamp one key takeaway that you would love for our listeners to take away from our conversation today, what would it be?
My favorite thing to tell the people and to remind the people is that Black children, Hispanic children, children from marginalized communities, children that speak English as a second language, children that have disabilities, children that have special needs are capable of learning and achieving at high levels. Like, that is the first thing our teachers have to believe. And when I say have to believe, I mean have to believe deep down in their soul. Because if you don't believe that about your students, it absolutely shows up in how you interact with them. Implicitly,
Facts.
explicitly, consciously, unconsciously, it shows up. So you have to do that self work. You have to check yourself and say, what do I believe about my students and how do my actions align with that? Because we all fall into that trap of maybe feeling certain ways about our students and their families or whatever because of just all of the circumstances. But truly, deep
Mm-hmm.
down, if we don't believe that our students can achieve at high levels, then it's going to show up in how we interact with them. And so that's the
Facts.
thing. That's the thing I want people to walk away, teachers to walk away with, is you need to believe in your students. And if you don't believe in your students, uh, figure it out or get out. This that's just what it is. And then the last thing is, culturally relevant pedagogy needs to be at the center of every single teacher preparation program and every single district and school-based professional development. So I am developing that, and y'all gonna holler at me in a few months. Call me to your schools, call me to your districts, watch my YouTube channel. I am going to help you get to where you need to be as it relates to culturally relevant pedagogy. Because I am doing for myself and for teachers what I wish had been done for me when I was in the classroom. Because my teacher prep program was trash.
Zay, she straight up called it a trash. But thank you for
Sorry.
the degree, y'all. But listen, but we were not ready. We were clearly not ready. Yes, we were not ready. But I really love that, what you said around, like, you gotta start with, I believe this is a possibility. I believe in my students, because it's just like the quote says, we can never outperform our beliefs. It
Oh, we can't.
can never outperform our
We can't.
beliefs. Like, if you listen, oh, it's so interesting how, man, my first year, man, my data was trash. I didn't believe kids could do it though. I said it. I said, "Oh, believe in kids." I do, but girl, you don't. You believe in kids. You don't believe in kids because your actions are not
That's
reflecting that. You
it.
ain't even getting them grade level
That's it.
content, girl. Really?
When we don't believe in them, we
Yeah.
give them low. We have very low expectations. We don't give them rigorous work. We inconsistently discipline them. We over discipline them. All the things show up when we don't believe in them. So you can tell me you believe in kids, but if I spend a significant amount of time in your classroom, if I spend a significant amount of time with your kids, I am going to be able to tell whether or not you believe in your kids.
Absolutely. That's a whole fact right there. Because you can tell the minute you walk in that
You
door.
can
Okay.
tell. Do you hear me?
Yes,
You can,
you can
and the
tell.
kids can tell. The children
They can.
know. They know who is going to bat for them. They know who loves them. They know who is trying. They know. They really, really do know. And so you can only fake it for so long.
Yes. And they will match your energy, y'all. They said I wear the same pants every day. Okay,
And you
listen.
don't want nobody teaching
They-
your kids that don't believe. If you don't maybe you don't have kids. You don't got if you got nieces and nephews, cousins, little kids that are out here in these schools. You don't want them in nobody's classroom that doesn't believe in them. You wouldn't want that for
Absolutely.
yourself.
Absolutely.
And so you don't want to be
No.
there. Teaching is not, I hate this phrase. What is it? People,
Teach for those that cannot or something like
yeah,
that. Something
people
like
who
that.
can't do teach or something like that. Absolutely not. Get out of here with that. Get out of here with that. No, we don't need those kind of
Um,
people in our spaces with our kids. Don't
facts.
come here
Yeah,
to collect
facts,
no
facts.
check. Don't come here because you didn't get that other job you wanted. Only come here if you truly believe in those children and their capabilities, and you
Mhm.
are here to help them become fully human. Drop somebody.
Right. Right. And yeah, and listen, you can't just this is not a job where you can just collect check
And
either.
first of all,
I
the check
just
ain't even checking. So
man,
it
listen,
ain't.
this ain't
Don't say
that.
it's
It's a
coming over here
it's
to collect the check because they not paying. They're not paying. Okay, so that's another thing.
listen,
We
listen, they're gonna give you a run for your money. Them kids will listen. You think you gonna come in here and sit at a desk? Oh no, baby. They gonna listen.
yeah,
It don't work. I tried it. It don't listen.
yeah.
They ain't listen. You gonna earn every dollar. But I want to be mindful of your time. We gonna land this plane. Thank you so much. I just call you Malone, but thank you for coming to the rookie reset. I feel like we gotta have a part two because listen, we didn't even answer the questions. I mean, we talk, but we had some good rich
I
dialogue.
know.
But I thank you so much.
Yes, when we can do it after the holiday, and we can really go deeper into the different components of cultural
Okay.
heritage.
Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. And folks, thank y'all again for so much for tuning in. And as you go out this week, I want you to keep that rookie state of mind, especially at this new idea. I want you to keep in mind that the level up is in the losses. Problems are a privilege. And yes, you might be new to this concept, new to this idea, but I know you're true to this because you're in this moment right now. And I believe in each one of you. So get out there this week, do those rookie reset push-ups, and let me tell y'all something. We'll be back next week. Y'all know I can't commit to a set time. It's between 5:15 and 5:45. I will be consistent with that, but we will be here next week. I told y'all I can't be like 5:30. I'm here. Listen, y'all know 5:15, 5:45. We will be here though. So we will see y'all next
Yeah,
week. It's all up. Thank you
thank
again,
you.
Miss Malone, for coming through today. And we